So, hi, I'm Michael Coiro, and I'm here with...
I'm Miss Erin Corrigan.
Miss Erin Corrigan, of course.
Look at that.
Upper school assistant principal, as she just told me. And we're going to talk about leadership today.
Okay.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited to
Okay,
talk about leadership.
good. So let me ask you this. First of all, how do you see yourself as a leader? Like, how do you view your own leadership?
See, this is what I was telling you, though.
Exactly.
I was telling Michael literally 35 seconds ago that I don't often think of my position at Rutgers Prep to be one of leadership. And then when these questions caused me to kind of step back and look at that, I thought, well, yeah, you could also define it as leadership. But primarily when you're in school administration, your job is one of service, both serving the students and also serving the teachers to try to make their job easier and to make it easier for them to instruct students. Mm-hmm. But when I think about how an assistant principal can be a leader, I think that it's important that Dr. Chodel and me and Mr. Demansky, who is our academic dean, and Mrs. Dutta, who is our dean of faculty, we all have some, I think, influence in terms of affecting the culture of the school. Mm-hmm. Because Rutgers Prep is a community, everybody has influence on how that culture exists. But I think we have more opportunities to speak to the group as a whole, mm-hmm. and therefore we have maybe a little bit more of an opportunity to make broader changes or to reinforce the standards we've all decided is going to govern our community. Mm-hmm.
So basically you just said you have a lot of influence, you have more opportunity to change a lot of things or to at least influence the culture of the school.
Yeah.
So how do you see your leadership style? Do you see yourself as more of a hands-on kind of leader, more of kind of like a rah-rah leader? Are you a quiet one that leads by example? How do you see yourself?
I don't necessarily think of myself as a quiet leader. I do think of myself as somebody who tries to live by the values that I believe in. Mm-hmm. And most of my life, for most of my adult life, has revolved around Rutgers Prep. And so I think that part of my leadership comes from my devotion to this institution. I don't necessarily think I would want to be an assistant principal, and I don't even know that I would want to be a teacher in a school that wasn't Rutgers Prep. Like, for me, it's kind of unique to this place, which might be a little weird. But.
No, I kind of understand what you're saying, but...
Yeah.
So actually, that's interesting you said that, because I was going to ask you in a little bit about, you said you always like to, follow your values, your core mm-hmm. values. So I guess you see that as more important, following your values to you is more important than, using, the ends to justify your means. So you'd rather follow yourself all the way through and what you really believe than trying to ultimately, reach maybe a certain goal and, maybe do some stuff that goes against your values in order to get there?
Well, it's weird, because it's not like, I've been watching House of Cards, right? And so
it's a great show.
Yeah, it's a really good show. But it's not really my job to uphold my morals. Mm-hmm. It's my job to uphold the school rules, right?
Right.
So there's plenty of times, for instance, I might not necessarily think it's such a big deal if a kid was only wearing a t-shirt and khakis in the lounge. But I know it's shocking that would even occur in this day and age. But because
not the school, the day and age,
anywhere. But because it's my job to make sure to kind of hold that line. Okay. Sometimes I find myself enforcing rules that might not normally be a priority for me, mm-hmm. but have to be a priority for me from 8:20 to 3:05 mm-hmm. because that's what my position does.
Right.
I would say in terms of the ends justifying the means, at the forefront, our goal is always making sure that kids feel comfortable and they feel like they are in a place that supports and nurtures them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can mean something different for another kid. Right. And that's sometimes the hardest thing from my point of view, is making sure that I'm being fair, even if I'm creating an individualized experience that's directed at a particular student. Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So.
It's perfectly fair.
Okay.
So, yeah, you mentioned that you spent a lot of your time, a lot of your adult life, and even younger adult life at Rutgers Prep. So, how did you go about becoming a leader? Was it something that you were, even at Rutgers Prep, was it something you just naturally always thought of yourself as? Was it something you acquired at maybe Sarah Lawrence or NYU? And
probably not NYU.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't mean to become a teacher. I was going to be a writer. And that's all I want to do was write.
This is all I hear all day, by the way, in creative writing.
I was just going to be a poet, I was going to...
But not to little kids, I remember.
No, I was just going to brew tea and write really profound poetry, And one of our teachers, in August before the school year started in the year 2000, she left. She got an opportunity to start a charter school in Newark, and she took that opportunity. And I had been in contact with Dr. Loy, and Dr. Loy reached out and asked me if I would be interested in teaching. And so it really was something that kind of fell into my lap.
Mm-hmm.
I really looked at it as maybe a temporary thing for me to think about if I'd want to continue with teaching, because very few people actually write full-time, and so I thought that might be part of it.
It's tough,
yeah. But then once I got here, I loved it. I love being in the classroom. I love creating lessons. I also love being part of a faculty, and I loved working with so many knowledgeable and caring people.
Mm-hmm.
I think more and more I realized that as much as I cared about how kids were learning grammar or how they were understanding the grapes of wrath, or I also really found myself caring about, who was having a hard time, or who was under a lot of pressure, or who was putting themselves in situations that might not turn out well.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost found myself sometimes overstepping my bounds in that, and getting involved and involving myself in things that I had no business involving myself in. And so after a while, I thought, well, maybe I want to do more than teach.
Right.
And at that point, I thought about going back to school for counseling. I thought about, but again, I really realized that I wanted my professional life to take place here with this particular community.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't that lucky for everybody? Yeah. But so then, Rutgers Prep is a great place to work, and that there's lots of opportunities. And I kind of took different opportunities. I became a grade dean. That was the first kind of leadership role I took. And mostly it was because I was excited to plan a prom. And we planned a really good prom. And then, from then on, I was doing a lot of clubs and a lot of outside stuff. And so I proposed that we have an upper school dean of students, which would oversee all of that stuff. So for a while, that's the position that I held, because I didn't want to have the piece that had to do with discipline.
Right.
And then...
She doesn't want to be mean, guys.
I don't want to... Well, now I like being mean. It just took me a while. No.
I've seen some of it. But
I'm not that mean.
I didn't say consistently. So to be that mean, you have to be consistent.
You really have to work at it.
Yeah.
I have to go back to school for my doctorate in mean, basically.
At NYU.
Probably not. But yeah, so... Then, at that point, that was when other people in the school decided they wanted to try different opportunities, and so we didn't have an assistant principal for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were taking on the challenge of finding a new principal, we thought that principal might be more comfortable having an assistant principal, and so that's how my job changed again.
Okay, yeah, because I actually wondered about that, but...
Yeah.
So so basically, what you just said was that, obviously a lot of you want to be here, a lot of your life is here, and you enjoy not as much the discipline, but you enjoy working here, and you like the faculty and the team, and you like being, the assistant principal to a new principal to kind of show them the ropes and whatnot.
Right.
So how do you, with that position, how exactly do you measure your own success? Like, to yourself, it doesn't matter to, anyone else, but, to your own self, how do you measure your own success?
That's kind of challenging, because it can't be about, is everybody wearing khakis, right? It can't be are everybody following the sometimes arbitrary rules that it's my job to enforce? Because your job as like students is actually to break those rules, right? That's like developmentally, that's part of what you're supposed to do. So that's not a measure of my success.
So I'm not wrong all the time.
It's not that you're wrong. It's that you're playing your part and I'm playing mine.
Oh.
Yeah. And the measure of my success can't be that the school day runs smoothly, because then I'd never be successful, right? Because the school day never runs smoothly. But I do think that a measure of my success might be if students feel comfortable here, and also if students leave here, meaning here, this office, feeling like, okay, they might have made a mistake, but it's not the end of the world, and they're going to the world is going to keep turning. And also that this place is the place that's important to other people as much as it is important to me and the rest of the faculty. So kind of trying to contribute to keeping that foundation strong for everybody else.
That's fair. I agree with that.
That's
So.
good.
So you've talked a lot about yourself, obviously, because this is
Right.
an interview about you.
It's true.
So I, want to branch out a little bit, maybe with this
Okay.
next question. With what values do you think that any leader should have or should embody? And do you feel that you struggle with any of those at times? I mean, I know I do. Obviously, in peer leadership, we have to discuss that, and there's certainly aspects, like, for instance, I'm not very patient. That's probably my worst aspect of being a leader. So I know that that's important to be, to being a leader.
Right.
But yeah, what values do you think everyone should have, and do you struggle with any?
Well, I certainly work with people whose leadership I admire a lot. I find Dr. Loy to be incredibly inspiring.
That was one of the questions, too.
Oh, really?
Who inspires you to be a leader? So 2 birds with one
So,
stone.
look at that, Steve Loy. I find that he has a way of making everybody he talks to feel like they are incredibly important. And as a result, then, you kind of fall in line with what he views as a positive vision for our community, because you feel important, and so you want to continue to contribute. And in terms of, working with Dr. Chodel has been such an awesome experience this year. And I think one of the strengths I really admire about him as a leader is his complete and utter calm. Like, no matter
So
what
calm.
goes on, he's like totally chill about it, right?
He seems it, but I guess you would know better than I would.
No, he's completely calm. And like he can get forceful when he needs to be forceful, but it's never personal. Which I think is really important when you deal with so many different people on a daily basis.
Keeping it professional.
Yeah. For me, I think my biggest challenge, and it goes either way, is keeping my emotions out of it. And that is in terms of being maybe too sympathetic to students, because sometimes, I have to take the fact that I'm genuinely fond and genuinely care about somebody kind of off the table in order to yell at them effectively. No, but you know what I mean. Like, especially this year, we had some scenarios in which students dealt with really serious consequences. And that was really hard, because it's hard not to want to step in and stop all of that from happening.
Right, of course.
When
you don't
know
want
it's
that
going to
to
be
happen,
painful for somebody, and it's going to cause a whole bunch of other challenges to come their way. But in part, you kind of have to do that. Right? So that's, and there's also the flip side of that, is because my responsibility is enforcing all these stupid rules. I shouldn't have called them stupid.
It's on film now.
It's on film. But maybe rules that other people, not me, would consider stupid. I'm trying to learn from Dr. Chodel in terms of not taking it personally when people don't necessarily follow those rules. That it's not like, nobody's not wearing a tie just to make me personally angry,
Just wake up and
they're like, you know what? I'm really gonna mess with Miss Corrigan's head. No tie today. So I think it's important to remember that. But it's a tricky balance. It's a balance between I don't ever want the faculty to feel like I don't support them, and that I'm too nice or too, because then I'm not doing my job.
Right.
But then the flip side is you don't ever want the students to think you don't care, because then why are you here?
Yeah. And all right, well, I'll wrap up because we're running a little bit long on time, but that's okay.
Sorry.
No, you're a good interviewer. I mean, it has something to do with my Oprah-like skills. I think it's
true.
more to
I
do,
just
but
feel like I should just talk and
just
talk.
open up.
Yeah.
But, so my last question is just, what is your ultimate goal as a leader at Rutgers Prep, and beyond, obviously, in life, because you're a mother and you have many other aspects of your life. So
I think I don't want this job when my kids are in high school. That would be hell for them. Can you imagine? They would.
No, honestly,
it would be so difficult.
They're adorable
for them.
now, but I can't.
They would. Yeah, they would. So I will have to think about that. This is I love this job because something new happens every day. Like, good or bad, it's interesting. Yeah.
And everybody knows everybody, so
right. So I don't know what my aspirations would be after. I don't ever want to feel like I'm done or I'm stopping, but I don't know. It's not, it's not pressing on my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
I do want our school to continue to grow. And there's ways that I think it's changed really positively from when I was a student here.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, people are more accepting of each other and people embrace differences a lot more. And so my ambition is to see that continue. Rather than me just move offices. So,
okay, cool.
All right.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Assistant Principal of the Upper School,
Look at
Ms.
that.
Corrigan. Bye.
Bye.